welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 10 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 9 of A Game of Thrones, Tyrion 1.
Our hope is to chat about the chapter without spoiling anything that is to come in what we hope to be an entertaining half hour for you all.
We'll summarise what happened in this chapter, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out the show notes. They provide some additional information about the characters and other things of note in the chapter.
And hey, if you like what we're doing, you can support the show by leaving a review on iTunes or at podchaser.com. That would really make our day and really help us out.
Yep, that would be great. How are you?
I'm less itchy than you.
Yeah, I got poison ivy. Again, this country is so hard to live in. like in
snakes,
snakes and wild animals and mosquitoes. In Britain, we've won the battle against nature.
Right,
it's over. Here, it's a constant.
Nature still runs wild.
Oh, it really does. And poison ivy is it's the worst. I mean,
yeah.
So itchy. If you hear sort of noises like cheese grating, that's me just going at it.
But you had a good day on the pitch earlier this week.
Had a nice win at soccer, thanks courtesy of a last-minute own goal.
Yes.
It was very exciting.
Now, how much did you owe that guy?
I owe him $100. Coincidentally.
Right.
I promise those two events are they just happen to coincide in time.
I'm sure that's how it looked as well.
Handed over the check in the changing room after the game. Anyway, let's get down to business. A quick recap of what Tyrion was up to previously. When we last we checked on him, he was at the feast to welcome the royal family to Winterfell. He was proving himself deceptively nimble and also an oddly insightful advisor to Jon Snow.
That he was.
Why don't you give us the summary of the chapter, McKelly?
All right, here we go. We join Tyrion in the Winterfell library, where he's spent the night studying rare documents. All night, the howling of Bran's direwolf has jarred his nerves. Bran is alive, but he has not yet regained consciousness. Tyrion leaves the library and finds his nephew, Prince Joffrey, in the yard, preparing for more sparring. Tyrion tells the prince that he needs to go and pay his respects to the Starks for their troubles. Joffrey is his usual self, so Tyrion slaps him across the face. After more lip and a second slap across the face, Joffrey goes and does what he's told. The Hound tells Tyrion that the prince won't forget what just happened, and Tyrion encourages Clegane to remind the prince whenever possible. So Tyrion goes into the morning room of the guest house of Winterfell, where he joins his siblings, Cersei and Jamie, and the other two royal children, Myrcella and Tommen, at breakfast. Tyrion learns that King Robert has stayed by Ned's side and has not yet slept. We see some tender playfulness between Tyrion and Jamie, while getting a hint of distaste from Cersei toward him. Both Tommen and Myrcella express concern over Bran's fate, both hoping he will recover. Tyrion reveals that after speaking with the Maester, it looks like Bran might not die. He notices a fleeting glance passing between Jamie and Cersei at that news. The twins ask some questions about the likelihood of Bran's waking. Cersei says it would be a mercy to let the child die, and Tyrion reveals that he does not plan to travel back to King's Landing with them. Instead, he plans to go north to Castle Black with Jon and Benjen, Jon's uncle, to see the wall.
Yep. So Bran's alive.
Yay!
There we hope.
Yep. According to the Maester, who he doesn't specify, but I assume it's Maester Lewin that he's referring to, that the Maester thinks if he were going to die, he would have done so already. Yeah. So, and your research on long falls proved accurate in this case.
I did know the answer before I did the research. It's not true science we're doing here.
That's a good point.
It's interesting that they were saying that Bran weakens when he direwolf is taken away, and when he can hear the direwolf, he strengthens again. So that's a nice touch.
Maybe it's like something he's clinging to in the living world. Yeah.
It's nice that Myrcella and Tommen seem fond of Tyrion.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's good that they fell far from that crabapple that is their older brother Joffrey. Yeah, Tyrion thinks Tommen's a sweet boy, unlike his brother, and he thinks that Myrcella has all of her mother's beauty and none of her nature.
That sounds like a winning combination,
yes, it
frankly.
does. Win-win.
So the two main points of the interest in the chapter, though, are Tyrion's mistreatment of Joffrey and the conversation between Tyrion and his family. So
yes.
to the interaction with Joffrey, on the one hand, Tyrion did seem a little bit gratuitous in his bossing Joffrey around. Joffrey wasn't actually doing anything wrong for once.
Right.
I mean, he was well, maybe a sin of omission. He wasn't going to pay his respects when he could have been. But I think the other aspect of that is that Joffrey is destined to be king one day, and so needs to learn discipline and responsibility.
Yeah, along with the general human decency of going to pay your respects to the family of an injured, possibly dying child, especially when you're a guest in their home.
Yeah.
Just
some things are harder to teach.
Right.
But again, we mentioned this earlier. It doesn't feel like he's surrounded by too many adults that are, in his life that are giving him this direction. So perhaps Tyrion might be doing him a long-term favor.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what he means when Clegane says the prince is not going to forget this, and he says, please make sure you remind him as often as possible. And if Sandor Clegane is your male role model, is there any surprise that Joffrey seems to be a bit of a jerk?
Yeah, not really. But actually, I was thinking about this earlier, that this is actually this is a real failing of Robert. Because if you think about the fact that, I don't think Robert has always been this kind of man he is now. He's sort of like become more and more of a drunk and a roister.
You wouldn't think he and Ned would be buddies if he was always this way.
They were raised together by John Arryn, so they would have had similar sensibilities. Robert could bring up his son Joffrey to be a man like he used to be.
Right.
But he's completely dropped the ball, leaving him to be raised by Cersei, who's not the greatest, and Sandor Clegane, who's definitely not the greatest.
Yeah, his line, the boy is a long time dying. I wish he would be quicker about it.
Yeah.
Probably not the kind of influence you want to be putting on a young man who is going to be king someday, likely.
Especially a young man who already sort of like has inherently the traits of his mother, of not really caring about other people very much.
But at least he eventually had the sense to do as he was told.
Joffrey, yeah, he did. He did. I mean, if you slap me enough, I'll do most things as well.
Yeah. Although, do we need to keep an eye out for future retribution from Joffrey toward Tyrion?
I'm going to imagine that Joffrey holds a grudge.
Yes.
One of the things he probably does have in his...
And we learn in the next scene that Cersei doesn't seem to be a big fan of her little brother, so what is going to happen when she finds out?
This doesn't reflect very well on me, but I did like the fact that Joffrey ran away in tears after being such a...
I wasn't broken up about it either.
So the Hound, Sandor Clegane, offers to silence the wolf for Joffrey, because the wolf is driving everybody crazy. Joffrey obviously has delight at that idea.
Yes, yeah.
He refers to Clegane as a dog, and so sending a dog to kill a wolf makes him...
Right.
He loves the wordplay.
But Clegane, he embraces the whole dog thing. He wears a helmet shaped like a snarling black dog. So I was wondering, maybe he took Tyrion's advice that Tyrion gave Jon about turning your weaknesses into strengths and embracing it, people can't. So you can wear it like armor.
Very good.
He took it literally in this case.
So the other conversation of consequences between Tyrion and the rest of his family. Tommen, sweet, is sad for Bran. Myrcella is thrilled when she hears the news that Bran might live. But at that moment, as Tyrion gives them that news, Cersei and Jamie, obviously guilty, we know, exchange a look, which Tyrion catches.
He does, yeah.
And so...
was that blind luck? Was he saying that to see how they react? Well, why would he suspect them?
You see, that's an interesting point to me. I mean, did he already suspect? He knows his siblings. He knows that they're capable of meanness.
I guess so, yeah.
But if a child falls from a tower while climbing the walls...
Especially a child with a history of climbing
the walls, would your first thought be, I bet it was those two?
Right. That's what I don't get.
Yeah. But maybe he did. I don't think he was saying what he said. I don't think he was announcing the news that Bran was potentially going to live to test them. I think he was just giving them news.
Right.
But he did notice the look. And so the book isn't quite clear on whether he looked for the look and saw it, or he just happened to notice it, and then he starts.
Said, "Oh,
Yes.
what was that look for?"
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of deal. Yeah. He did say he hopes Bran wakes, which seems like a good guy. I assume he hopes Bran wakes, but then his next line is that he would be interested to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, which again, was the seed planted at the moment that he caught the look, or did he already somehow have a feeling?
Yeah.
And why would they be up that tower? Does he know about what the kind of thing they get up to as well?
You would think. I mean, you would think he's been around them his whole life. He's had to have accidentally walked in at some point. I don't know. And Jamie, jokingly, a little bit later on, questions whose side Tyrion is on, and he's like, "My dear brother, I love my family."
Yeah.
It just feels like there's a dialogue going on in there that's not actually being said out loud.
I'm not sure that Jamie was that joking when he said that. I think the line was something along the lines of his smile curdled, and he said darkly. So
right.
I actually think he was not really joking about whose side he was on.
Good
but
point.
again, I mean, that's totally giving the game away, really. If you say, I hope he gets better, I'd be interested to hear what he has to say, and you say, I wonder whose side you're on, it's pretty much an admission.
You mean the side of life or death? What sides are we talking about here?
Presumably they do feel some guilt. I mean, I think at this point they're like Macbeth. They've waded this far into the blood. They've got to keep going, kind of thing. But they must feel a little bit of guilt. The consequences of Bran's recovery, obviously, are pretty dire for them.
Yeah, if he wakes and says, "Those two were wrestling, and that guy pushed me out the window," it's like double trouble right there.
Yeah. Maybe Jamie could get to him first and say, "All right, tell him about the push. Just don't mention the wrestling."
I was trying to pull you in.
Yeah.
I accidentally pushed you instead. But one thing I found interesting is that despite Cersei's what seems rather clear dislike for Tyrion, she asks him questions like he's an authority. So she must respect his knowledge and intellect at some level.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tyrion says that she looks at him with distaste, the same distaste she's looked with him since he was born.
Right.
Since he was born.
Yes.
But yeah, she can't help but be interested in what he has to say. She knows he's a smart thinker, so.
Right, yeah. Jamie jokingly asks Tyrion, when he mentions he's not going back to King's Landing, he's heading to the wall with Benjen and Jon. Jamie jokingly asks, "Are you going to take the black on us, dear brother?"
He was definitely joking this time.
Yes, this time, pretty sure he was joking. But as a second son of a lord, it's not completely unlikely. Jamie, as the Kingsguard, has given up his rights to land, so technically Tyrion is the heir to Casterly Rock, so that would make him more of the first son.
Right, but then based on Tyrion's own comment from earlier that all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes, if he's a bastard in Tywin's eyes, is he the heir to Casterly Rock?
Right,
Do we know?
right. So that's an interesting thing. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, because technically he is the heir to Casterly Rock by rights.
And that makes us think back to the king slaying, good old Jamie. So becoming a Kingsguard is a lifetime commitment, but Jamie certainly had an out after he killed Aerys.
Right.
If he'd said to Robert, obviously I'm not very good at this, I didn't do the right thing, Robert, I mean, given that you're about to become king and he's going to be your bodyguard and he killed the last king, you'd be like, you know what, you're right. Why don't you go off and do something else?
Your job is King's Guard, and instead you King Slayed. Maybe you're cut out for a different line of work.
So you'd imagine he would have had an out, could have broken off, gone back into the family business, lording it over the West, paying their debts, pushing children out of windows. So why didn't he take that opportunity? Why didn't Jamie take that opportunity? Now, maybe he really enjoys being a Kingsguard.
Yeah, maybe.
Until he snaps and kills the king.
Right, yeah.
This is a question. It should be near Cersei.
I think it is. I think because if he goes back to if he goes back to being the heir to Casterly Rock and goes back to Casterly Rock, first of all, he's going to get married off to someone, likely. And secondly, he's no longer in King's Landing with his twin sister / lover.
So we're inferring anyway, that this the Broken Tower tryst was not their first wrestling match.
That would be my assumption.
Right.
It didn't have the feel of a first time tryst.
Yeah. He didn't bother to light candles. So I wonder if that made Tywin mad. I mean, I keep thinking about this. If you see yourself as having one son and one daughter. You marry the daughter off and she becomes the queen. If your son chooses to do something that takes him away from being your heir, that would annoy you.
Yeah.
And if he has a second opportunity and again doesn't take the opportunity to come back, I wonder if Tywin is mad about this.
I'm certain of it. Yeah. After the first time that King Aerys made Jamie a member of the King's Guard, Tywin was furious because now he's lost his heir. Now given a second chance to do it over again, and he makes the same choice. Yeah. At least the first time wasn't his choice necessarily accepted, but it wasn't his choice. I don't even know if you can reject if the king says, I'm making you a member of my King's Guard.
And of course, at that time, Tywin was hand to the king, Aerys. Right. And so Jamie would have at least been sort of like with him, so, fatherly love might have been like, well, good, I'll get to see him all the time.
Right, yeah. I don't think that's how he reacted, but maybe that was a consolation prize.
Yeah. So, I think you're the one who noticed this, that Jamie means a lot to Tyrion, and I think the line that we noticed was, during all the terrible long years of his childhood, only Jamie had ever showed him the smallest measure of affection or respect, and for that Tyrion was willing to forgive him almost anything, which could come in handy in the next few pages, I feel. there's something rather large that needs to be forgiven here.
Yeah. Seems like he's basically his one bright spot in the way he describes it, not intentionally, but the things he says makes it seem like he's had a rather tormented life.
And you mean Jamie is the bright spot in Tyrion's life?
Yes, Jamie is the bright spot in Tyrion's what appears to be.
Could have been either way, really.
True. Yeah, Tyrion he seems to have some serious self-esteem issues.
Yeah. Although I think some of it is tongue-in-cheek a little bit.
Maybe,
He does talk about if he had a twin, it would be too horrible to contemplate. But then again, I think the same about myself, because I'm like, I don't need any rival for the attention that I have. Who would need that?
He also refers to himself as speaking for the grotesque. When Jamie says Bran would be more than a cripple, he'd be a grotesque. But again, that could go back to what he told Jon. Take your weakness, arm yourself in it, make it a strength. Maybe since he knows people make fun of him and pick on him because he's the imp. I did finger quotes again.
Yeah. I think people are beginning to pick it up, actually.
Yeah, when I make noises that.
Yeah. We hear your fingers cracking.
Yeah, it just seems unfair to himself. It seems like he's being rather hard on himself. Yeah.
But I mean, he is a wisecracker. I mean, that's true. Some of it is that, I think.
Yeah, probably is.
But no doubt he had a pretty rough upbringing,
Yeah.
And so clinging on to the life boy of Jamie's fondness for him would have been easily done.
So we've had two characters already who their birth has caused the death of their mother.
I think it was kind of common.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, they didn't have emergency rooms.
Yeah, C-sections. I suppose C-sections have been going on for 2,000 years here. So.
Right.
But they weren't always successful for the mother.
Yes, probably much lower success rate. So Tyrion thinks that Robert will command Ned to leave Winterfell whether or not Bran has woken up, which seems kind of callous. I mean, I get you can't wait around forever, but how long has it been? They haven't really said, but can't have been that long. Yeah. So, I mean, he says we're closer than brothers, but come on, man, your kid's a buzzkill. We got to get going. Remember the women and the wine in the South that I was telling you about? I got to get back to that.
Yeah, given they said that Robert has been staying up all the time with Ned, you'd imagine that there would be a period of getting bored of that and hanging out, doing whatever else you do, and getting bored of that, and then saying, we've got to leave. Right. We can't stay here forever. So you'd think there'd be a little bit more time.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed was that there's a slight oddness to Tyrion's social standing, because he slapped the Crown Prince across the face twice in front of the Crown Prince's bodyguard, the Hound. But at the same time, when you didn't mention this in the summary, but when Tyrion arrives in that scene, he talks to Joffrey and Clegane, and they ignore him, they pretend that they can't see who's talking. They look over his head and say, who's talking? Yeah. And finally, sort of, the Hound looks down on him and says, oh, little Lord Tyrion. Yeah. So that combination of he has authority and can get away with things that the rest of us couldn't, but also being treated abominably by people.
Yeah. So what is he an untouchable High Lord? Or can minor nobles like Clegane get away with making fun of him? I mean, I guess both, it seems.
Yeah, apparently. So, background information that will help
Yeah.
you with this.
So our background section at the moment is getting a bit thin, and we run the risk of spoiling future story details if we give away too much too early, so we're trying to prevent that. And since we're at the moment kind of stuck in Winterfell with the same cast of characters, kind of running a little thin on things to talk about, but
Well, let's dive a little deeper, though. We talked about Tywin Lannister in an earlier episode. He's the father to Cersei and Jamie and Tyrion. His wife, Joanna, was also a Lannister. She was Tywin's first cousin. Again, the rotten fruit not falling far from the tree.
Right.
She died giving birth to Tyrion, Joanna did, which is really doubling down on the unlivability of the infant Tyrion.
Yeah.
Tywin was taciturn prior to this and has never remarried, and so we can infer that he still grieves over Joanna. Since her death, Tywin's brother Kevin has become Tywin's most trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Joanna's death has always made me wonder. I mean, this is pure speculation. There's no evidence one way or the other. If Tyrion actually suffers from a genetic disorder, like Peter Dinklage does. Peter Dinklage suffers from achondroplasia, which is what we normally think of as dwarfism.
Right. Okay.
Or whether, if Joanna died in childbirth, if the birth itself somehow twisted and contorted his body.
Right.
Something went wrong and he got injured and ended up the way he is.
Okay.
So I wonder if it's genetic or environmental.
I think it is the how'd you pronounce it?
Achondroplasia.
Achondroplasia. If I remember how the details go, I believe he was born with a unusually large head compared to his body.
Right, which is a sign of, or at least disproportionately large head.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a sign. Okay, all right. Well, we can cut this bit out then. I guess.
So let's talk for a minute about Casterly Rock. Seems like an odd name for the seat of such a powerful family as the Lannisters are. So what is it? It's not actually a rock, is it? Indeed, it is. Casterly Rock is a castle carved out of a huge rock found along the western coast of Westeros. It overlooks the Sunset Sea, as well as the town of Lannisport. Some people think that the rock looks like a sitting lion at sunset. Yeah. The rock, when I say huge, the rock is absolutely huge. It's 3 times the height of the wall, which I believe is 700 feet.
I believe it is.
So that's pretty big.
That is huge.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And nearly 2 leagues long from east to west. Despite being a non-traditional castle, it still contains the usual dungeons, storerooms, barracks, courtyards, balconies, gardens, etc. of a usual castle. So it just looks very different, I guess. The Lannisters get much of their wealth from the rock itself. They have mined it for gold for centuries. There are hundreds of mine shafts deep in the rock, but yet there are still untouched veins of gold running through it, so they have not totally tapped into the full potential of their wealth. So, yeah, the history of the castle is pretty interesting, and we'll definitely throw in more details. There's a lot of interesting things about it.
So are the Lannisters the richest family? Is that...
I think Highgarden is.
Oh, are they? Okay. I thought when we talked about the Tyrells that we said they were the second richest family.
Oh, yeah.
I have a feeling that's what we said.
Yeah,
so the Lannisters must be number 1.
Yeah, yes. I think that's right. That is right.
So in comparison to the television show, this particular chapter survived into the show almost entirely untouched. Practically every line of dialogue, Tyrion with Joffrey, Tyrion with Sandor Clegane, even Tyrion's breakfast order, Tyrion's sly probing comments to his siblings was used as is. So
the writers took the
day off. Yeah. The only tangible change, perhaps meaningful, is that in the show, Tyrion doesn't awake in the library, doesn't sit in the library all night. He wakes up with a horrible hangover in a pigsty. That's where Joffrey and the Hound find him.
Right.
So clearly Tyrion is a layered character, and the show definitely has focused a little bit more on the bawdiness than on the scholarliness.
Which goes back to, I mentioned during, I think it was John 1, that the TV show really plays up the kind of raunchy...
Yeah. It is HBO.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. So, but you had a really interesting.
Yeah. One thing I did notice is, I mean, obviously they had to choose sets for some of these things, but the Winterfell of the TV show is not quite in keeping with the Winterfell of the book. The show Winterfell has lots of open courtyards and walls but no obvious living areas. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of space to be in. But the book Winterfell has a tower specifically for its library.
Right.
It has it's much more dense with buildings and interiors. It sort of reminded me a little bit of Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast, which is, for those who don't know, it's a book about a castle. Gormenghast is much bigger than Winterfell, but it's extremely dense and complicated and hard to find your way around. And I think Winterfell is a little bit more like that in the book than if you watch the TV show, you'll have an impression of Winterfell, which is not quite right.
That's true. I still do have trouble sometimes separating the two, because in my mind I see the HBO version of Winterfell.
Right.
But when I'm reading, I'm like, how does that fit into what is in my head?
Yeah. I mean, I noticed it because one of the things it said was Tyrion climbs down the stairs from the library. And I'm like, where's this library? And so I sort of did a bit of research, and there is a specific tower for the library, which is why he's coming downstairs.
So he couldn't find the library in the HBO version. That's why he ended up where he did.
Possibly.
So, okay, Pedantry Corner.
Pedantry Corner.
So, explain to me exactly your pedantry.
So my pedantry on this one, there's very little pedantry here, so I'm being pedantic to even bring this up. But while he's mocking Joffrey, Tyrion says, they're talking about killing the wolf to stop it.
Right, yeah.
And Tyrion says that the Starks would miss a dead wolf because they can count past 6.
Okay.
Now there are 6 wolves.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So they don't have to count past 6 to notice if one of the wolves goes missing. They only have to count to 6.
Right.
So it's a very small piece of pedantry. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and actually you don't even have to count to 6. You only have to count to 5 to notice if one of the 6 wolves goes missing. Because,
Do tell.
Because, right, if you look today, they look out and they count the direwolves. They go, there's too many to count.
Right.
If they can only count to 5, they're like, oh, that's a lot. Yeah.
Innumerable.
The next day, after they've killed one of the direwolves, they would be like, hey, there's only 5 direwolves. Where are all those others?
Where'd the others go?
Exactly.
I getcha.
So I mean, really, you just need one hand to be able to count these direwolves.
That's you dug deep there. I like it.
That's
very creative.
Yeah, that's about as pedantic as you can get in Pedantry Corner.
But speaking of Pedantry Corner, we got feedback from Randall, and he really enjoys Pedantry Corner. He said it makes him laugh. So this one provided a few chuckles. It provided me a few chuckles.
Yeah. News and notes, anything?
Well, speaking of feedback, I don't know where this would fit or if it does at all. But my wife Stacy gave me some oddly backhanded complimentary
He's still
feedback.
my beating heart.
So it only took however many episodes to get her to listen to the prologue. And her feedback was, you guys are great. You have fantastic chemistry, which, my dad said the same thing. Like, both unprompted.
There you go.
I guess...
Can we just leave it there? Yeah. I feel there's a but coming.
There is a but coming. She said we sounded as good as... she considers herself a podcast expert.
Okay.
She drives for her job. She
listens to podcasts.
Travels, yes. And so she listens to podcasts a lot. So she considers herself an expert. She said we sound just as good as all the other podcasts she listens to. She might have just been being overly nice there. I don't know. It's not a usual thing, but could have happened. Here comes the but. She said, but it's for a specific audience. She goes, I was like, what do you mean? We explained to you what happened. She's like, yeah, I tuned out.
So wait, it's not our problem. The problem is not with us, it's with George Martin.
Yes.
That's
exactly.
all right. That's pure positivity.
Yes. I mean, we only have what we have to work with.
Exactly, yeah.
And speaking of Stacy, real quick, you remember last week I mentioned the shower situation, which broke the handle. Mysteriously, the handle fell off of the shower, and at the same time, the door fell off of the shower. So the next day, I said, "Hey, no worries, I'll get a plumber up there, and we'll get a new shower system put in." And she goes, "Oh, well." So I was thinking that since the shower's broken, maybe this is a good time to just remodel the whole bathroom.
Oh, man. This is looking more and more like the pushing Bran out the window.
Yes.
The shower did not die innocently in a fall.
Yes. It did start the gears just like Tyrion. I started thinking, wait a second. The handle mysteriously fell off in your hand, and then the door mysteriously fell off of the shower surround. Huh.
So clearly what we should do here is we should set up a conversation in which we tell Stacey that you've talked to the Maester Plumber and he says that the shower door might survive. And say, I would be interested to know what he has to say. And see if she says something like, it would be a mercy if he died.
That's a good idea. So, I don't know, maybe we'll be in for a bathroom remodel.
I guess so.
I'm paying for a kid in college right now, so
yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah. All right, I think we're done. In conclusion, I think it's really good to have Tyrion as a point of view character.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. We have Ned, Bran, Jon, Arya, all representing the Stark perspective, and the Lannisters need someone to get their message across.
Yeah.
And
Tyrion has a great combination of the family name that gets him into in important conversations and stuff, but also total what seems like lack of respect at the same time.
Yeah. So he's often he's not being called on to. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of projecting forward, but given that he will be in situations where we want to hear what's going on, but he himself will be sort of like a fly on the wall,
right?
Not even noticed by the people talking.
His name got him in the door,
yeah,
but his lack of respect,
yeah,
makes him a fly on the wall.
Yeah, he definitely seems to suspect his siblings' involvement in Bran's misfortune.
It sure seems that way.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine why he would from the outset, but certainly what they said at breakfast and the look that passed between them, I would be suspicious at this point too.
Yeah. And should we fear for Tyrion? I don't know. The Hound, he seems to think that at least that Joffrey won't forget it. He didn't say he's coming for you, buddy, but
yeah,
he is the Crown Prince. He seems to have more power than Tyrion, although not power to stop Tyrion from slapping him upside the head twice.
But he is only one death away from the crown, and then he would have the power to stop Tyrion.
Yes, he would. So I just wonder, like I said earlier, what's Cersei gonna do? Maybe she will thank him for teaching her son manners and respect.
I think that's it. There's no other alternatives. That's what she'll do.
Although if I were Tyrion, I would not follow her up any towers. Especially don't go near the windows.
I had a sick thought just then. It's sort of like
I meant pushing him out the window.
You asked your brother. He really liked it.
That's not what I meant.
It does look sort of hopefully that the other two royal children didn't get Cersei and Joffrey's temperament.
Yes, that's something to be thankful for. But, they're young. Maybe Joffrey was a sweet, innocent little boy when he was that age.
We'll never know.
Seems unlikely, but... All right. So I guess that's it, huh? So as always, you can reach us at ghosts.harrenhal@gmail.com. And please go out and follow us on Twitter at @GhostsHarrenhal.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.